The cruelest thing he ever did was make her feel chosen, the night before he chose someone else. Nobody tells you what it feels like to love an alpha. They tell you about the power, the presence, the way the ground beneath your feet feels different when he is near. Steadier somehow, like the earth itself recognizes him. They tell you about the mate bond, the mark, the pull that no elder has ever been able to fully put into words. They tell you all of that. What nobody tells you is what it feels like to love one in secret, to be his, but only in rooms where no one is watching. To know every soft thing about a man that the rest of the world never gets to see, and to carry that knowledge alone, like a gift you are not allowed to show anyone. Wren had loved her alpha for 3 years. 3 years of quiet rooms and stolen hours, and a happiness so carefully constructed, she had learned not to breathe too hard near it. 3 years of watching him command an entire pack with nothing but his presence, and then watching those same commanding eyes find her across a crowded hall and go, just for a fraction of a second, completely soft. She was not imagining it. She had never been imagining it. The candle had burned down to almost nothing. Wren lay with her head against his chest, her dark red hair spilling across his skin, listening to the steady beat of his heart, the way you listen to something you are trying to memorize. His arm was around her, his chin rested at the top of her head. Outside the narrow window of her small room, Ironvale was asleep. She knew it hadn't. She could feel tomorrow in the room already, sitting in the corner, waiting. His chest rose and fell beneath her cheek. She pressed her palm flat against his ribs, feeling the warmth of him, the realness of him, and closed her eyes. Wren. His voice, low, careful, the voice he used when he was about to say something he had been rehearsing. "Don't, Alpha," she said softly. "I have to." "I know." She didn't lift her head. "Just give me 1 more minute before you do." He was quiet. His hand moved slowly up her back, and then stilled. 1 more minute. He gave her that. Then, "The ceremony is tomorrow morning." She exhaled, long and slow against his chest. "I know, Alpha. I love you," he said, steady, certain, the most honest thing in the room. "That is not changing tomorrow. What I feel for you, I have never felt for anyone else. I need you to know that." "I know, Alpha," she said quietly. "The marriage, the mating, it is political. You understand that. Ironvale needs the Northern Alliance. Her family brings territory, numbers, strength. We have been bleeding for 2 seasons. If I don't do this..." "Your pack suffers," Wren said. "I know. I have always known that." He looked at her. Something moved across his face. Relief and guilt arriving at the same time, which was a complicated thing to watch. "Then you understand why." "I understand why," she said. And she did. She genuinely did. Understanding had never been her problem. "What I need to understand, Alpha, what I need you to tell me tonight, is what happens to me. After tomorrow, what do I become in this pack?" He held her gaze, and she watched him, watched the exact moment, the complicated thing in his expression settled into something resolved, something decided. "You will still be here," he said. "You will still fill my bed. Nothing changes between us." The candle flame shrank. Wren stayed very still. Her hand was still pressed against his ribs. She could still feel his heartbeat, steady, unbothered, the heart of a man who believed he had just said something reassuring. She kept her voice soft, respectful, the way it always was with him, because that was who she was, because she would not change that, even now. "Is that all I mean to you, Alpha?" she asked. "Your bed?" The heartbeat beneath her palm did not change its rhythm. He looked at the ceiling, then back at her. "It is the best I can give," he said quietly. For now. 2 words. Small and enormous, and full of a future that would never arrive. Wren nodded. Once. The careful nod of a woman placing something fragile into a box inside herself and closing the lid quietly so nothing spills. She laid her head back down against his chest. She did not pull away. She did not ask him to leave. She loved him. She loved him in the deep, inconvenient, undignified way that does not stop simply because it has been given every reason to. And this was the last night he was only hers, and she was going to hold onto the last hour of it, even if holding on cost her. His arm tightened around her. She closed her eyes. The candle went out. If you are new here, welcome. You just found your new favorite channel, and honestly, you picked the perfect story to start with. And if you have been here before, you already know we do not play around with these stories. Make sure you are subscribed, so every story lands right in your feed the moment it drops. Hit that bell, leave a comment, tell me. Where are you watching from? Now, let's get back to Wren, because her night is just getting started. And morning is going to change everything. Morning came the way it always does when you haven't slept, suddenly and without apology. Wren was dressed before the sun had cleared the tree line. Uniform pressed. Dark red hair pinned back tightly. Every strand contained nothing loose, nothing that could be called anything other than practical. She stood at her small mirror and looked at her own face for a moment. At the composed, careful face she showed this pack every single day. And she arranged it, set it, locked it into place like armor. Then she picked up her apron and went to work. Petra was waiting in the corridor outside her door, small and bright-eyed, already in her own uniform, holding 2 bread rolls wrapped in cloth, because she knew Wren would not have eaten. She held one out without a word. Wren took it without a word. They walked together toward the great hall through corridors already buzzing with ceremony preparations, flowers being carried in armloads, white cloth being draped along the ceremonial passage, pack members moving with the particular energy of a day that felt like history, like something worth remembering. You don't have to be at your station, Petra said carefully after a while. I spoke with Elder Danny. I can cover. I'll do my station. Wren, I'll do my station, Petra. Quietly. Finally. I am not hiding in a back room, like I have something to be ashamed of. I have done nothing wrong. Petra looked at her sideways, then nodded once and said nothing more. They went to work. By the time the pack assembled, the great hall had become something else entirely. Moonflowers and pale wisteria cascaded from every pillar. Candles burned in their hundreds along the window ledges, throwing gold light across the stone floors. The ceremonial aisle ran the full length of the hall, lined on both sides with Iron Vale's assembled pack. Every ranked member present, every family, shoulder to shoulder in their finest. The elder stood at the altar at the front of the hall in his ceremonial robes, ancient and still, holding the binding cord that had been used at every alpha mating in Iron Vale's history. Wren stood at her station at the very back of the hall, tray in hand, spine straight, face composed. Petra was 2 positions to her left, close enough. A shift moved through the assembled crowd, that particular collective drawing in of breath that a room makes when something significant is about to enter it. And Wren did not need to turn around to know what it meant. But she turned anyway. Alpha Calum walked the length of the ceremonial aisle. He wore the deep charcoal dress of an alpha on his mating day. No excess, no adornment, just clean lines and the quiet authority of a man who had never needed a room to announce him. His jaw was set. His shoulders were back. His eyes were fixed on the altar ahead of him, with the focused, forward look of a man who had made his decision and was walking toward it, without flinching. He did not look at the back of the hall. She had not expected him to. She was glad. She was not sure what she would have done if he had. He took his place at the altar. The elder spoke briefly to him, low words, private, and Alpha Carlum nodded once. Then the great doors at the far end of the hall opened, and Isolde walked in. She was beautiful. Wren would not lie to herself, not even today, tall and composed in the particular way of a woman who had been raised to enter important rooms and know exactly what she was doing in them. Her ceremonial gown was ivory and long, embroidered at the edges with the silver thread of her family's pack. Her dark hair was swept up and pinned with something that caught the candlelight. She moved down the aisle with the slow, deliberate grace of someone who understood that this moment was being watched and had decided to be completely worthy of it. The pack watched her with admiration. Wren watched her and felt something complicated and honest move through her chest. Not hatred, not even jealousy exactly. Something quieter than both of those things. Something that felt like the moment you finally accept a truth you have been fighting for a very long time. Isolde reached the altar. She turned to face Calum, and something happened that Wren had not prepared for, something she had not thought to brace against. Isolde looked at him, and her composure shifted. Not dramatically, not for the crowd, just slightly, just enough to be real. Her chin lifted and her eyes held his, and for a moment she looked like exactly what she was. A woman standing in front of a man she intended to bind herself to, feeling the full weight of that. The elder raised his hands. The hall went absolutely silent. "We gather," the elder began, his voice filling every corner of the great hall, "as Iron Veil has gathered for generations, under the moon, under the bond, under the sacred law that governs all that we are." Not a sound in the hall. Even the candle flames seemed to hold still. "A meeting is not a contract," he continued. "It is not a political arrangement or a signature on parchment. It is a promise made in the deepest part of what we are. Wolf to wolf, soul to soul. The moon does not witness half-hearted things. She does not bless what is not meant." Calum stood at the altar, with his hands at his sides and his face unreadable. "Isolde Vane." The elder turned to her. "You come before your Alpha, and before this pack. Do you come willingly?" "I do," Isolde said, clear and certain. "Do you offer your bond freely, without condition, without reservation?" "I do." "Then speak what is in you. Let your Alpha and your pack bear witness." Isolde turned fully to Calum. She took both his hands in hers, and she spoke, not to the room, not for the crowd, but directly to him, in the voice of a woman who had decided that if she was going to do this, she was going to do it completely. "I have watched you," she said, "before this arrangement, before our families sat across a table and decided our futures. I watched how you lead, not with fear, not with force, but with the kind of conviction that makes people want to be worthy of following you. A breath. I will not pretend I know you yet, but I will spend every day of my life learning you. I will stand beside you in front of this pack, and behind you when no one is watching, and I will never, not once, give you reason to doubt that I am exactly where I chose to be." Her voice did not waver. "I choose you, Calum Drake. Not your title, not your territory. You. And I will spend my life making sure you know the difference." The hall was so quiet, Wren could hear her own heartbeat. She pressed her lips together, looked at a fixed point on the wall directly ahead of her, and kept her face completely, perfectly still. The elder turned to Calum. "Alpha, speak what is in you." Calum looked at Isolde. at her hands in his, at the face of the woman he was about to bind himself to before his pack and his moon, and everything that witnessed such things. "I cannot promise you easy," he said. His voice was low, and it carried. "This pack is my first responsibility, and it will test us both. There will be days that are hard, and decisions that cost, and moments where the weight of what we carry is not equally distributed." He paused. "But I promise you this. I will never leave you to carry anything alone. I will protect you. I will respect you. I will honor what we build here." Another pause, shorter, like the next words had been harder to find. "And I will be faithful to what we are." Faithful. The word landed somewhere in Wren's chest, like a stone into still water. Quiet, heavy, rings spreading outward that she could feel but not stop. The elder lifted the binding cord, wrapped it once around their joined hands. The ancient gesture, older than the pack itself, the physical sealing of what had just been spoken. "The bond is spoken," the elder said. "The cord bears witness. What remains is the mark." Calem's free hand came up. Wren watched. She had told herself she was ready for this. She had spent 3 months telling herself she was ready for this. He tilted Isolde's head gently to the side, one hand at her jaw, careful, deliberate. Isolde's eyes closed. The hall leaned forward as one body. He marked her. The sound Isolde made was soft, just a breath, just a release, and then it was done. The lunar mark, pressed into the curve of her neck, binding them before the moon and the pack and everything that had ever meant anything in Iron Vale. The hall erupted, howling, cheering, pack members who had been holding their breath for months, finally releasing it all at once, in a wave of sound that hit the rafters and bounced back down and filled every corner of the great hall with the collective joy of a pack that finally felt safe again. And Wren felt it, not metaphorically, not as grief dressed up in poetic language. She felt it the way you feel a wound, immediate and specific, and located in an exact place. A sharp, tearing sensation directly in the center of her chest, like something that had been silently tethered there had just been cut, without warning. Her hand came up, pressed flat against her sternum. The tray tilted. Petra caught it, one hand, silent, without drawing a single eye. Wren pressed harder against her own chest, and breathed, in, out, in, steady. She would not make a sound. She would not move. She would stand at her station at the back of this hall, with her spine straight and her face arranged, and she would not give this moment anything more than it had already taken from her. Through the celebrating crowd, through the bodies and the noise and the flowers and the gold candlelight, Alpha Kylem's eyes found her. Just for a second. 1 second in which she saw everything he was feeling, laid out plainly across his face. The guilt, the love, the sorrow, the helplessness of a man who had just done the only thing he believed he could do, and was looking at the person it had cost the most. Wren looked back at him. Steady, composed, giving him nothing. Then she looked down at her tray, and that was the end of it. The celebration moved from the great hall to the courtyard as the afternoon opened up. Long tables carried outside, food brought in courses, the packs spilling into the warm air with their joy and their relief, and their confidence in a future that finally felt secure. Wren worked every minute of it, moving between tables, refilling cups, clearing plates, present and invisible in equal measure, the way she had always been in these halls, the way she had perfected over 3 years of loving a man she was not supposed to love and needing no one to know it. She was good at her job. She was excellent at her job. At the high table, Alpha Calum sat with his Luna beside him. Isolde had changed into a simpler dress for the outdoor celebration. Still beautiful, still composed, still every inch the woman who had just spoken her truth in front of an entire pack without flinching. She accepted congratulations graciously. She laughed at the right moments. She leaned occasionally toward Alpha Calum to say something low and private, and he would respond. And from a distance, it looked exactly like what it was supposed to look like. Wren did not watch them. Or she watched them the way you watch something painful. In short glances, quickly looked away from, catalogued and filed. Once, crossing the courtyard with a fresh round of drinks, she passed close enough to the high table to hear Isolde say, "I love you, Alpha Calum. You should know that. I will always worship you." And Calum, quietly, "I know that." And Isolde, with something that was almost gentleness. Then she moved closer and kissed him. Wren kept walking. 2 days after the ceremony, a pack member came to Wren's quarters with a summons. "The Luna requests your presence. Her chambers. Now." Petra read it over Wren's shoulder and said nothing. Her jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. That was all. "Go," Wren said simply, reaching for her apron. "I didn't say anything." "You were about to." "I was about to say go." Petra said, "Go. And remember who you are in that room." Wren looked at her. "You are not less," Petra said quietly. "Whatever she says to you in there, you are not less." Wren held that for a moment. Then she smoothed her uniform and went. The Luna's chambers were everything the servants' wing was not. High ceilings, long windows throwing afternoon light across expensive rugs. The smell of something floral and deliberate. The scent of a woman who had decided what impression this room would make, and had made it. Isolde sat at her dressing table when Wren entered, drawing a silver brush through her dark hair with the unhurried ease of a woman whose time was the most valuable time in any room she occupied. She looked at Wren in the mirror, did not turn. "Close the door," she said pleasantly. Wren closed it. "Come and stand here." A gesture toward the center of the room. Not aggressive. The way you point at where you want a piece of furniture placed. Wren walked to the center of the room and stood there. Back straight, hands clasped in front of her, face neutral. Isolde set her brush down, looked at Wren's reflection for a long moment, then turned on her stool to face her directly. She was not angry. That was the first thing. There was no heat in her face, no visible emotion sharpened to a point. She looked at Wren the way a very intelligent woman looks at a situation she has already fully assessed and decided how to handle. "How long?" she asked. "Luna?" "How long?" Isolde said again, same pleasant tone. "Have you been in my husband's bed?" The afternoon light fell between them. Somewhere outside a bird called once and went quiet. 3 years, Luna, Wren said. Isolde absorbed this the way she seemed to absorb most things, without visible reaction, filing it away behind those calm, watchful eyes. 3 years, she repeated. And in 3 years, what did you imagine? What did you tell yourself this was going to become? Wren said nothing. I am asking genuinely, Isolde said, not to humiliate you. I want to understand the thinking. She tilted her head slightly. You are a maid, an orphan, no family name, no bloodline, no rank in this pack. And yet for 3 years you have been, what? Hoping, waiting, believing that an alpha was going to look past all of that and choose you. I believed he loved me, Luna, Wren said quietly. I was wrong. Something moved across Isolde's face, quick and complicated, gone before it could be named. Love, she said, almost to herself. Then, let me tell you what I know about love and alpha males, since apparently no one has done you the courtesy. She stood from her stool, moved to the window. They are capable of it, genuinely. I do not doubt that what he feels for you might be real in its way, but an alpha's love for a woman, beneath his rank, is a very specific and very limited thing. She looked out the window. It lives in private rooms, and late nights, and conversations no one else will ever hear. It does not survive daylight. It does not survive council meetings or alliance negotiations, or the moment an elder puts a piece of parchment on a table and says, "This is what the pack needs." She turned back to Wren. "He might have made you dream in the dark," she said. "I am what he chose in the light, and we are both going to have to live with what that means." The room was very quiet. "What it means for you specifically?" Isolde continued, moving back toward her dressing table, sitting, picking up her brush again, dismissing the subject even as she finished it. "Is this. You will continue your duties. You will do your work well. I am told you always have, and I see no reason for that to change. You will conduct yourself with discretion, appropriate to your position." Her eyes found Wren in the mirror. "And you will remember, every day, what you are in this pack. Not because I wish to be cruel, but because clarity is a kindness. And I think no one has been particularly kind to you in that regard." She turned back to her reflection, began brushing her hair again. "You may go," she said. Wren turned to leave. The brush hit the floor. "Oh," Isolde said, mildly. "The way you say 'oh' when you have spilled something you don't particularly care about. How clumsy of me. Come pick that up, would you?" Wren turned back, walked across the room toward where the brush had fallen, just in front of Isolde's stool, just close enough that she would have to bend near her feet to reach it. She bent down. Isolde's leg moved, smooth and unhurried, extended just enough, just at the right moment, and Wren went down, flat to the floor, both palms catching the stone, dark red hair spilling forward around her face, the brush inches from her. Fingers. The room was absolutely silent. Isolde looked down at her, at the maid on the floor of her chambers, and her expression did not change. Not into cruelty, not into satisfaction, not into anything so obvious as gloating. It stayed exactly as it had been. Composed. Almost thoughtful. "Oh," she said softly, "that's just where you belong." Wren stayed on the floor for one breath. Two. The stone was cold against her palms. Her hair had fallen across her face, and she did not push it back. Then she reached out, picked up the brush, rose to her feet in one steady movement. No stumbling, no rushing, no trembling hands. She smoothed her uniform with one hand, walked to Isolde's dressing table, set the brush down on it gently. She did not say a word. Not one word. Wren walked out, down the long corridor, past the tapestries and the high windows, and the doors of rooms that belonged to people, with names that meant something in this pack, around the corner, down the back staircase, into the narrow servants' passage that smelled of linen and wood polish and the particular ordinariness of a life lived in service. She made it to the alcove beside the kitchen before she stopped. Her back went against the wall, her eyes closed. She stood there very still, with her hands pressed flat against the stone on either side of her, just breathing. In, out, holding everything inside that was trying to be larger than the space she was keeping it in. Petra appeared around the corner 15 seconds later. She did not ask what happened. She came and stood beside Wren in the alcove, shoulder to shoulder, back to the wall, and waited. A full minute passed. Then, "She's not wrong," Wren said, quietly, to the opposite wall. "Wren!" "No, I mean it." Her voice stayed steady, but something in it had thinned at the edges. Everything she said. She's not wrong about any of it. A breath. "I am a maid. I have no name, no blood, no history anyone in this pack can point to and say, she belongs here. She is worthy of this. I came into this world with nothing, and I have spent 23 years being nothing, and I thought—" She stopped. "What did you think?" Petra asked, gently. "Why does the universe never take it easy on me?" Wren said. "I came into this world with nothing. No mother, no father, no name, no pack blood anyone can trace. Other pups grew up knowing who they were, or where they came from, what they were worth." She opened her eyes, stared at the wall across from her. "I grew up cleaning floors and being grateful I had floors to clean. And then I found something that felt like mine, something real." A long breath. "I held it so carefully, Petra. I never asked for more than what he could give. I never made demands, I never caused trouble. I just loved him quietly and kept his secrets and tried to be enough." She stopped. Petra reached over and took her hand, said nothing, just held it. "It was never going to be enough," Wren said finally, "because I am a maid, and this pack will always see the uniform first." A pause. "Even when he is taking it off." Silence. "Come," she said quietly. "I'll make tea." They went. Isolde did not make Wren's life dramatic. She was far too precise for drama. What she did instead was quiet and daily and devastating, in the particular way that water is devastating, not by force, but by persistence. Wren's name appeared on every heavy roster, the great hall floors, on hands and knees, the old method, because the Luna had standards, the outer courtyards before dawn, the upper quarters, laundry, carried in baskets that left marks on Wren's forearms by midday. Every task that was physical and repetitive and humbling found its way to Wren's list. And in public, in the dining hall, in the corridors, in any space where pack members gathered and could witness. Isolde corrected her, always pleasantly, always with the tone of a woman simply maintaining standards. "This linen was not pressed correctly. Please redo it before the council arrives. Wren, you missed a section of the east corridor. The Alpha's guests will be walking through shortly. Do try to be more careful with the serving order. Ranked members are always served before staff guests. Surely you know this by now." Small, precise, public. Wren bore every single one. "Yes, Luna. Right away, Luna. Back straight, eyes down, voice even." She would not give her a single thing to work with. And through all of it, every heavy basket, every correction, every early morning, Alpha Kylum. In public, he was flawless. He passed her in corridors without pausing, sat at his table while she served without letting his gaze find hers. When Isolde corrected her once at a council dinner, calmly, over an incorrectly arranged tray, he did not look up from the documents in front of him. She was the maid. He was the Alpha. The gap between those two things did not close because of what happened in private. She had always known that. She had agreed to that, quietly, without ever being asked. Knowing it and living it were different things, but she lived it. Every day, she lived it. 3 weeks after the ceremony, a folded note appeared under Wren's door before dawn. She found it when she rose for her morning duties, sitting on the floor just inside the door, like it had been placed there carefully, deliberately, in the dark. She picked it up, unfolded it. The East storage quarters require reorganization and a full clean. Tonight, the Alpha's orders. You will go alone. She read it twice. She knew every corner of this pack house. She had cleaned every corner of this pack house. The East storage quarters had been spotless 4 days ago. She had done them herself. She folded the note, sat on the edge of her bed. Petra came through from the adjoining room a few minutes later. She always woke when Wren woke, some calibration between them that neither had planned, and saw the note on the bed beside her, picked it up, read it, set it back down. She sat beside Wren on the bed. Neither of them spoke for a moment. Then Petra said, "How do you feel?" "I don't know yet." "Do you want to talk about what you're going to do?" "No." Petra nodded, stood, went to the small wardrobe in the corner and opened it, moved past the uniforms hanging in a row, pulled out the grey dress, simple, soft, not a uniform, and laid it across the foot of the bed, without a word. Wren looked at it, looked at Petra. Petra shrugged with her eyebrows and went to put the kettle on. The east storage quarters were at the far end of the pack house, a long, low-ceilinged room lined with shelves and old furniture, and the particular quiet of a place that nobody came to without reason. Wren pushed the heavy door open just past midnight. He was already there. Alpha Calum stood in the middle of the room with his arms crossed, and the look on his face of a man who had rehearsed this moment several times, and found that none of the rehearsals had prepared him for the actual arrival of it. He was not in his alpha dress, just dark trousers and a plain shirt, the version of him that existed when he was not performing anything for anyone. The shelves around them were perfectly ordered, not a thing out of place. Wren set her lamp on the nearest shelf, looked at the immaculate room, looked at him. "Alpha," she said. "Wren." His voice was quiet. "Thank you for coming." "You are the Alpha," she said simply. "I don't refuse direct orders." Something crossed his face at that. He uncrossed his arms, took a step toward her. "That's not why you came," he said. She said nothing, which was its own kind of answer. He crossed the rest of the distance between them and stopped close. The distance that existed nowhere else in Iron Vale except here, in rooms where nobody was watching. His eyes moved across her face the way they always did when they were alone, like he was checking on something, like he needed to see that she was still there and still real. "I needed to see you," he said. "You see me every day, Alpha." "I see you working," he said. "I see your uniform and your tray and the back of your head when you leave a room I've entered. That is not—" He stopped. "That is not seeing you." She looked at him steadily. "I miss you," he said. Simply, openly, the way he could only say things when there was no one to hear them. "I sit at that table every night and you move through the room, and I cannot look at you properly and I—" He stopped again. "Is there a version of this where I'm allowed to just say that?" "You are the Alpha," Wren said quietly. "You are allowed to say whatever you like. I'm asking if you will receive it." She looked at him for a long moment. At this man who had marked another woman and made promises in front of his entire pack and still stood, here in an empty room at midnight, saying "I miss you," with his whole face undone. The terrible truth was she believed him. She had always believed him. That had always been the terrible truth. "This is not fair," she said, gently, not accusing, just honest in the way she had always been honest with him. "I know. Coming here, sending for me this way, it is not fair, and you know it." "I know, Wren." He reached out and tucked a loose strand of dark red hair behind her ear. The small, familiar gesture that had always undone her, that he had been doing for 3 years without knowing the exact damage it caused. "I know all of it. Tell me to go and I'll go. I mean that." She should have told him to go. She looked at him. "Don't go," she whispered. He was gone before the sun came up. Of course he was. Wren lay in the quiet of the storage room and listened to his footsteps fade down the corridor and did not move for a long time. She stared at the ceiling, at the rough stone above her in the lamplight, at the perfectly ordered shelves around her, everything in its place, everything exactly as it should be. No evidence, that anything had happened here at all. She dressed, picked up her lamp, walked back through the dark pack house to the servants' wing. Petra was at the small table, 2 cups of tea, already made, still warm. She pushed one across, without looking up. Wren sat, wrapped both hands around the cup. "He left before sunrise," she said. "He said he misses me." A long silence. "He held my face, Petra." Her voice was very quiet, the way he always does, like I am something worth being careful with. She looked into her cup. "And then he left before the sun came up." Petra said nothing. She reached across the table and covered Wren's hand with hers. Stayed there. A week later, Wren was sick before her morning duties. She told herself it was the early hours, the cold, the weight of everything pressing down. She went to work and came back and was sick again the next morning and told herself the same things. The third morning, she came out of the washroom and Petra was standing in the corridor. She looked at Wren's face. Wren looked back. "Don't," Wren said. "I haven't said anything." "Don't say it, Petra." "Wren." "I said don't." Her voice cracked on the word, just slightly, just at the edge. "I'm not ready. I need one more day of not knowing. Please." Petra closed her mouth, stepped aside, but they both already knew. She confirmed it alone, in private, the old pack method, the one the elder healers had used for generations, and that left no room for uncertainty. She sat on the floor of her room afterward. Outside her window, the pack went about its afternoon. Voices in the courtyard, the sound of training in the far grounds, the ordinary texture of a life continuing to move while hers had stopped completely. She pressed her hand against her stomach. She was carrying the Alpha's child. She, Wren, a maid, an orphan with no name and no bloodline and no rank in this pack. She was carrying the child of a man who had just taken another woman as his Luna and made his promises in front of the moon and everybody. She sat there for a long time. When Petra found her, she was still on the floor. Petra sat beside her without a word, right there on the cold floor, shoulder against shoulder, and waited. "I'm frightened," Wren said finally. "I know. I don't know what to do. He needs to know." She said it quietly, but without hesitation. "Whatever I am to him, whatever this pack thinks I am, he is the father of this child, and he deserves to know." Petra was quiet for a moment. "Are you sure?" "Yes." "Then write to him. Carefully. Just enough." Wren got up from the floor, went to her small desk, sat, picked up her pen. She wrote 4 sentences. "Alpha, I need to speak with you privately. It is urgent. It cannot wait. Please find a way to see me." She folded it, sealed it, held it for a moment. Then she went to find Fen. Fen was one of the older pack members, quiet and steady, the kind of man who had spent a lifetime being reliably present without requiring recognition for it. He had run messages for Wren before. He was trusted in the way that some people simply are, built into the grain of them. Not something they decided, but something they simply were. "Fen," she said quietly when she found him in the side corridor. "I need this delivered directly to the Alpha. His hands only. Not staff. Not a guard. Him." Fen looked at the letter, looked at her face, nodded once. "I'll see to it," he said. She watched him go. Then she went back to work, and she waited. Fen moved quickly through the back corridors of the pack house, the servants' passage, the narrow connecting hall, the route toward the main building where the Alpha's study sat on the upper floor. He turned into the dim passageway that ran between the linen stores and the rear staircase, and stopped. A figure stood in the middle of the corridor, still, patient, like they had been there a while, and were not concerned about how long they had waited. The figure wore a long, dark cloak, heavy fabric, deep hood pulled far enough forward that the corridor's thin light could not find a face inside it. Just shadow. Just the outline of someone who did not intend to be identified. Fen took a step back. The figure extended one hand, palm open, waiting. "The letter," said a voice, low and unhurried and precise, in the way of someone who has already decided how this ends. "Give it to me." "I don't know what." "The letter Wren gave you." The hand did not move. The voice did not change. "Give it to me now, or I will take you to the Luna myself and explain exactly what errand you were running for a servant girl in the middle of the night." Fen stood in the half-dark and looked at the open hand and the featureless shadow where a face should have been. His hand went to his vest. He drew the letter out. He placed it in the waiting hand. The fingers closed around it. No acknowledgement, no threat, no further word. The figure turned and moved into the darkness of the corridor and was gone, as quietly as smoke, as completely as if they had never been there at all. Fen stood alone in the passageway. Then he turned and walked the other way and told himself he had seen nothing. The quarterly celebration dinner was held 3 days later. The great hall was warm and full and loud, with the joy of a pack that had reasons to feel good about its future. The new mating secured, the alliance holding, the sense of stability that had been missing from Iron Vale for too long. Long tables ran the length of the hall, candles everywhere. The smell of food and wine and celebration. Alpha Kylum sat at the head table with Isolde beside him. They received congratulations and well wishes with the ease of two people settling into a shared role, not intimate exactly, but functional. Present, united in the way that two people can be united before they have become anything to each other yet. Wren worked the far end of the hall, tray in hand, moving between tables, refilling, clearing, present and invisible in equal measure. She had heard nothing from Alpha Kylum. 3 days of silence, no word, no signal, no moment of eye contact that lasted long enough to mean anything. She told herself he hadn't received it yet, that Fen hadn't found the right moment. She told herself these things because she needed somewhere to put her hope that wasn't the floor. She refilled a cup, moved to the next table. At the front of the hall, Isolde rose from her seat. The room quieted. That immediate, instinctive quiet of a crowd that recognizes a significant moment arriving. Wren went still. Isolde looked at Alpha Kylum first. Something private in the look. Something that said, "This is yours too. Receive it." Then she looked out at her pack. "My Alpha," she said, her voice warm and clear and carrying to every corner of the hall. "My pack." Her hand moved, slowly, deliberately, and pressed flat against her own stomach. The room understood before she said the word. Iron Vale will have an heir. The hall detonated, howling, cheering, the crash of celebration hitting the rafters and rolling back down. The sound of a pack, releasing months of tension in one enormous collective exhale. Pack members on their feet, cups raised, the particular joy of people who had been worried and are now, suddenly, not. Alpha Kylum rose from his seat. The surprise on his face lasted only a second, just long enough to be real, just long enough to tell Wren that Isolde had kept this from him too, had saved it for exactly this room, and this moment, and this audience. Then something else moved across his face, complex and layered, and underneath all of it genuinely moved, because he was not made of stone, because this was his pack and his bloodline and his future. He took Isolde's hand, raised it. The pack howled louder, and across the celebrating hall, through all of it, through every body and every sound and every raised cup. His eyes found Wren. She was standing at the far end of the room with an empty tray in her hands, and for the first time since the mating ceremony, her face had come apart. Just slightly. Just at the edges. Just enough for him to see it from across a crowded hall. The crack in something that had been holding itself together for a very long time. She felt his eyes and looked back at him. For 1 second, they looked at each other across that celebrating room, across the distance between alpha and maid, between marked Luna and secret love, between a child announced and a child unannounced. And everything that could not be said between them lived in that 1 second completely. Then Wren looked away. Petra was already at her elbow, the tray lifted from her hands, quietly, smoothly, not drawing a single eye. "Wren," Petra said, very low. "Look at me." Wren didn't move. At the front of the hall, Isolde's eyes swept her celebrating pack. Gracious, warm, the perfect Luna, in the perfect moment, and landed, briefly, precisely, on Wren. She smiled, small, private, the smile of a woman who has just played the final card from a hand she has been holding for a very long time. The letter, still folded, still probably sealed and unread, was somewhere close to that smile. And in Wren's stomach, quiet and real, and with nowhere left to go, was a secret that the entire hall was celebrating without knowing it existed. 2 women, 1 alpha, 2 children. But are both truly his? And somewhere in the dark corridors of Iron Vale, a hooded figure is keeping secrets that could destroy everything. Who sent them? What do they want? And how much do they already know? Part 2 is coming. And I promise you, nothing is what it seems in Iron Vale. Subscribe, if you are not already. Leave a comment and tell me. Do you think Isolde's pregnancy is real? And be honest, are you still rooting for the alpha? Or has he lost you completely? We will see you in part 2. Don't be late. Until then, stay bound to the moon.